Okay, sorry guys. God stopped the video so I can go and eat. Because he said that my food was getting cold and it's going to get hard. So, you know, I get praying and praying, praying and praying and praying over that house. And, sorry if you saw my food. I know it's not nice, but anyway. So, at the end of my stay, I get this long message from this man saying that they wanted me to give them a 5-star rating and a review because that's how they make their money. Because he has a heart condition and blah, blah, blah. And I was going to write one. And God said, no. Like, why not? And I don't want you to. I'm like, okay. On October 19th, I get a message through Airbnb. They're asking for $250 to fix a hinge on the door, on that same drawer that I knew was broken when I got there. And I was like, excuse me? $250? What is that hinge made of? And he goes, they didn't fix it. They just want the money. They're mad because you didn't give them a review. I'm like, but you didn't let me. He goes, because they don't deserve one. I'm like, okay. And this is before the Airbnb that I went into with the woman who, the cleaning lady was on me about a smelly dog. And they never complained about the smell. And then, now, every place I've ever been at, including motels, God will tell me, I want you to clean. I'm like, okay. So I've got Clorox bottles. Bottles. Not one, not two, 3. I have 3 bottles. And he'll have me wipe down the walls. He'll have me wipe down the floor. He'll have me wipe down the refrigerator if there's a refrigerator. In this case, everything was white. So he had me wipe down the wall on the toilet, on the door to the toilet. And I was like, Father, this is a lot of clean. Like, are you sure you want me to do this much cleaning? He's like, yep. They're charging me $80 for cleaning, for extra cleaning. And I was like, I cleaned. You had me clean like I was disinfecting after a death. And he goes, I know. But they're mad because you didn't give them a review. They want to force you to give a review. And I'm like, well, if I give a review, they're not going to like what I'm reviewing. And he goes, well, let it go. And he and he says, remember your roommate? I'm like, yeah. And he goes, if it's all going back in reverse, if I'm reversing the reversal, this is okay. All right. I understand. Okay. Alrighty. So, the reversal of the reversal. When I got to this land, I went past the land and I went to another place. I went camping out in the woods. He's not going to have me go camping. It is way too cold for that. It is starting to be winter, and if I go out into the woods, I'll probably freeze. Because he does not want me buying a tent. He does not want me buying, he did give me the go ahead to go buy a blanket. But like I said, he's had me preparing. Okay, now to what I was saying about the silence. Okay. God had foretold through one of his prophets that he would be taking a moment of silence where he was going to allow his children to either keep going day by day like nothing happened, or they could really just push in on him and stay close to him, to be able to really keep listening to, because he was like, I wasn't getting signs like I was getting before. I wasn't getting numbers as much as I was getting before, because he had me tell you that I was going to talk about more in numbers, and then he gives me nothing. And I have seen an uptick of the numbers, I have to tell you. You know, he's been giving me a lot of fives, lots of fives. And he's been giving me 25, 25, 26, 25, 26. Now, that has a special reference to me because my daughter was born on the 25th of March. And Just Emily made a post that March and September are like mirror images of each other. And that 9/11 and November 9th are mirror images of each other. But it goes deeper than that. And this is where you have to have that relationship with God to be able to get revelations on the words that you hear or the words that you read, and to be able to start to see them manifest in the real. And you're just like, those are signs and wonders. Those are signs and wonders. In 2011, we all know that this country went through one of the most horrific things that we've ever experienced in our lifetimes. And that was the Twin Towers in New York being demolished by evil men doing evil things. Evil meaning they were sinning because they were idolizing a God that is not our God. Okay? And because of that, they were able to do things. And God will allow things, the enemy to successfully complete things if it will bring him people. And that year, just like on D-Day with Teddy Roosevelt, when he held a national prayer, 1 Corinthians chapter 13, number of love, that day brought many people to their knees to pray back to God. And because of that, many have stayed with him, but some have returned to their old ways. Every time the enemy has a success, it turns people back to God. It reminds people that there is something greater than ourselves that is worth praying to. That said, 2011 brought home to God many people. But those people have started to wean off, because what happens when things are good? You don't need God anymore. People look at God as only the God of catastrophe, not the God of abundance and love, and to be celebrated even when things are going good, especially when things are going good. That's when you should celebrate God, because then he can be even more abundant. He can be even more loving, because the more love you give him, the more love he gives you. The more submission you give him, the more love he gives to you. Remember, the wife submits, the husband loves. He is the husband. And the wife submits herself to him because she loves him, because he has shown her love. The love I have is because God has shown me love. Love is the answer to everything. I have changed people's hearts just by showing them love and understanding, by giving them a helping hand versus a stern ugliness. You know, yes, God is leading me in different things. So yesterday I had a situation at work, and this has all been things that Lucifer has been doing. Oh, let me back up. So when I was at the hotel, I knew I was only supposed to stay there 3 days. But then I got the inclination of do another day. And I was like, okay, I still have a little bit of money. I'll pay for another night. So I stayed. When did I get paid? I checked in Wednesday. I stayed Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. So I stayed 5 days. 5. And then I got the inclination to stay another night. And I was like, you know what? Okay. I got to be at work at 3:30 tomorrow on Tuesday because it was now Monday. I was about to check out. I said, all right, I can stay another night. But God didn't want me to stay another night. He was like, I need you to, because he had already put it in my heart that I needed to go somewhere. And this is where we're at. He wants me to take a little trip. And I told him yesterday, I need you to confirm it. And then he brought me to something that I wrote 2 years ago. And he goes, do you remember asking me for this? Yes. And he goes, well, that's why I need you to go. You know what? I'm low on funds. I have half a tank. And I'm like, then why did you have me do all this other stuff? And he goes, because I wanted you to have fun. But you were sending me on a trip. And he goes, don't I always provide? And I said, I know you do. I have to laugh. When you start to see the way God works, it's not punitive. Our fear is not God's issue. That's our fear. That's Lucifer trying to stick his hands in there. So I went to try and book another night. And that's how I knew God did not want me to stay another night. The room was already booked. They had no rooms in the room that I was staying in. So I would have to pick up everything and move it to a different room if I wanted to stay in the hotel. And God knows me better than that. He's like, you're not going to pack up just to move to another room. You're going to leave. And that's exactly what I did. I'm like, fine, I give. So I was like, okay, I'll go. And I packed up everything. I cleaned like I always do. And I left. My truck, there's a leak in the radiator, but I've been keeping it with radiator fluid. And this is how I know that I am about to cross a threshold. And this one is even bigger because so Monday I get to work, I was making all kinds of mistakes. And my boss looked at me. He's like, are you okay? I'm like, yeah, I'm fine. And he goes, you realize you've made this mistake and that mistake and that mistake. And I'm like, what the heck is wrong with me? And I did. I was going through the day like I was asleep. Like I wasn't awake anymore. And so I was making I barely made it through the night. And the next day, apparently I didn't sweep well enough, so I didn't get in trouble, but they're like, hey, you just need to be careful that you make sure you clean it. So I get to work, right? So this is after, this is yesterday on Tuesday. This is after me sleeping in my car overnight. And then I realized something when I was in my car. And God was the one that revealed it to me. So there is a new girl that's been working with us. And she was there on Monday. And because I kept asking God, I'm like, what was going on, Father? Why was I making so many mistakes? I've never made that kind of mistakes, especially like giving someone the wrong food. Like, I'm always very careful about making sure that the ticket that I give out is what. And as soon as I gave them away, the man was running to the door, and I knew I had given him the wrong order. The good news is it was just pizza and not wings. He ordered the wings, but he got 2 pizzas. And it was a specific type of pizza, so I had to go and let the manager know. I said, hey, just to let you know, I'm sorry, I just gave out the wrong order. I didn't mean to. And he goes, don't worry about it. I'll take care of it. So he made the pizzas. I gave them to the rightful owner because the rightful owner finally showed up. Luckily, we had time to remake the food. And then, then I went to go make some wings to help out, because when we have too many people up front, I always go help out in the back. And the order for the wings that I had made didn't need to be ready until 5, and it was only 4. Or no, it didn't need to be ready until 6, and it was only 4. And he's like, yeah, you made those too early. And I was like, I'm sorry. And then I get the next, so, then I clean, and we were so slow. I actually pulled my phone out to look at it, which I don't ever do when I'm working. And my other boss saw me, and he's like, go sweep that anymore. I'm like, oh, no. Yeah. Everything that I could have thought of that would have happened on Monday happened. Anyway, so I came in on Tuesday, and the 2 girls that opened the store that morning were in the front. And the one girl is training to be a manager. And she looks at me and she goes, do you want to sign in early? It's 3 o'clock. I didn't sign in until 3:30. And I'm like, yeah, sure. Without missing a beat, she turns around and she looks at me and the other girl, and she goes, okay, I need one of you to watch the front, and the other one needs to go wash dishes. Before she was even finished with her sentence, the other girl was like, I'll watch the front. And I was like, so I guess I have to wash the dishes then. I'm like, all right, whatever. So I went and I washed dishes. Now, anybody else would have been like, excuse me, I'm not washing the dishes. You can go in the back and I'll go stay in the front. I'm not doing that. But I didn't. God said, don't say a word. I'm like, okay. So I went in the back and I started washing dishes. And, I get into my own little world and I start thinking about my own, and I'm having fun, because when I'm working, when I'm busy, I'm happy. So I was getting through the dishes and I'm like, do, 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 do. And I'm just chucking along. And then the manager who is helping out, he's not a manager, he's a district manager, which is like a supervisor. So he comes back from going to the bank. Now, the reason he is at the store is because the man that runs the store, the GM, is on vacation for 10 days. So he's there covering, just to keep the store, making sure that we're not, stealing or making mistakes. Anyway, so This man comes back, and he doesn't talk to me. He didn't see me. I was in the back doing dishes. So I start bringing the dishes forward, blah, 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 and he sees me. And he just, because it's like a beeline. I'm just, back and forth, doing my dishes. Then the boss, the man who hired me, he's my favorite boss. He really is. He's a really nice man. He has a wonderful wife. He just had a baby girl. And God says, God has been highlighting him to me because he's like, I want you to teach him. And when I first got there, I was like, teach him what? Like, he's a manager. He knows how to be. He wants to be a GM. I'm like, oh, so you want me to teach him how to become a GM? Because the GM he has is not going to teach him because he's too comfortable. And he kept telling him, don't make waves. Just stay in your lane. And when I came in, I'm like, stay in your lane? Nah, we ain't about that. No, you got to elevate. You got to get higher. You got to do this. You got to do that. So I started giving him ideas on the things that he could do to change the store, to change the attitude. And the reason is because that's what God said to do, to share my knowledge, to share. And I love teaching. Oh my gosh, I love teaching. It is like an innate, ingrained thing in my heart that I just want to teach everybody everything I know. And sometimes people can think that's a little intrusive and opinionated, and they just don't like it. So there I am, helping this man, teaching this man. And I told him, from the time that because I used to work for another store, for another pizza chain when I was younger. That's where I made it all the way to run my own store. So God is like, you have the knowledge. I taught you. You struggled. And I'm like, oh, I know I struggled. They didn't want to. No, back then the enemy did not like me. He wanted to keep me down so bad. And I just didn't know how to say, I'll stay down. And I still don't. So when I first started, I told this man, it's going to take 6 months for us to lay down the foundation, we're going to have to do a lot of work. I said, it's going to be a lot of customer service. We're going to have a lot of smiles, a lot of correct orders, do it right the first time. And he's like, all right, let's do this. And whenever him and I are together in the store, the vibe changes, the attitude changes, the room environment changes. So I just hit my 6 months. This is my 6th month of working at this place. And I turned around and I looked at the manager and I said, hey, do you remember when I told you that it would take 6 months to lay the foundation? And he goes, yeah. Do you know how long I've been here? And he goes, no. I said, this marks 6 months. And he looks at me and he goes, no shit. I said, yeah. And he goes, and I said, we've laid the foundation. We've done the grunt work. We've done the labor. Now it's time to stand back and enjoy the fruits. And I said, but we have to execute. And we have to ensure that every time we are busy, that we are sending out a good product. And we are setting the correct expectations on the amount of time that it's going to take for it to arrive. I said, if you set clear expectations, people will accept your product regardless of how late it is. I said, and it always has to be good and it always has to be hot. It cannot be cold and we cannot miss. And he's like, okay. I said, we took care of our customers for the first 6 months. Now it's time for our customers to deliver, to do their part, which is bring their friends, bring their families, and come eat here. And God came through. we have been busier. Halfway through my 6 months, this man starts chanting, I want to be number one. I want to be number one. And God had him, I don't know if you remember, but I said that God had me ask him for $20. And I was like, Father, I don't want to ask my manager for $20. I'm like, that's cross. And he goes, ask him. Okay. My obedience. He sewed into me $20. Yes, God had me pay him back because he was trusting that I was going to give him that money back. But God had me make him wait. I'm like, God, I have it in my hand. Like, I need to give it to him. And he's like, wait. Why? Because he wanted to see his heart posture. He wanted to see what he was going to say about me behind my back. What he was going to say about me in his heart. That's what he wanted. That's why he had me wait. And then finally, because this was Wednesday when I had the money, and I told him I was going to give him the money on Wednesday, and I'm giving it to him on Sunday. So he's like, and I swear, I could tell he was getting angry. Like, because he was being short with me, but he was being mean, but he was just being short. Like, yeah, okay. So I knew he wanted to ask me, but he wasn't going. It's like, no, I'm gonna let her pay me. She knows he owes me. She knows she owes me. Don't be that person then. And then on Sunday, when because I was opening and he was at the store. I always arrived at the store before everybody else does anyway. And but he was already there. And I went up to him and I said, I am so sorry. I've had the money in my pocket and in my wallet. So I put it in my pocket today. Today, because I wanted to make sure that I gave it to you, because every day I come in, I see you, and I forget that I have the money, and I owe you this. And this is what he did. He goes, huh? I could tell from his face that he knew exactly what I was talking about. So I handed him the $20, and he looks at it, and he just puts it in his pocket. He's like, okay. And I was like, but I know you wanted to know where the money was. And then he lights up like a Christmas tree. And I was like, and God goes, he was worried that you were going to turn into everybody else, that he put his trust in the wrong place. But now he knows that you're okay. And then I got vindicated on the money being stolen, because now they know who it is and they're keeping an eye on her. If they catch her, they're going to fire her. But that's between them, God, and her. I stay out of that. I just don't want her on my shifts, and yesterday she was on my shift and I was like, Father. So back to Tuesday. Okay. So they had me on dishes, right? I almost had the dishes done. Like, I was not mad. I was actually smiling. And the in-training manager came up to me. And she goes, thank you for being so open to doing the dishes. And I looked at her and I said, anytime. The reason she came and thanked me is because I looked at her when she said, one of you has to stay up front, the other one has to go do dishes. And the other girl was like, I'll stay up front. I'm like, okay, I guess I'll do dishes. I turned around, and as I was walking away, the other girl said something with an attitude to the training manager, or the manager in training. And she looks at her and says, you need to watch your tone. You need to be more respectful. And she's like, oh, okay, sorry. And then she came and said, you know what? Thank you for being so gracious in doing the dishes. She didn't say gracious, but that's what she meant by being so kind in doing the dishes. Because she knew I had just started my shift. My shift was at 3:30. And they brought me on just so that I could do dishes. And I did have a word with God. Like, Father, I'm doing dishes. And he goes, think of it as punishment for last night. I'm like, punishment for last night? Then my boss shows up, the guy that hired me. And he sees me on the dishes. And he goes, I'm like, what are you doing here? I thought you weren't going to come in until, I'm like, it's our first day. Give us a minute. And he goes, I'm not here. Pretend I'm not here. I'm like, okay. But I went back to doing dishes. And I know he went and asked the other manager, why is she doing dishes? And I know what he said. I don't know. She was doing dishes when I got here. And he's like, okay. So they got the district manager out the door. And then he's like, send her home, get her off dishes, get her to the front, and send the other one home. So the two ladies that were there who sent me to the dishes got sent home. So as we're going through, this is right before we got busy, the manager for the night said, hey, we need to talk. I'm like, what? What's going on? And he goes, yeah, the girls had to sweep this morning. Had to sweep the dining room this morning. I'm like, oh, so the dishes was punishment? And he just looked at me like, he goes, do you ever get mad? I'm like, no. Why? What's the point in getting mad? So he went, showed me, blah, 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 got to make sure these are clean. I'm like, okay, whatever. And we got into the rush. And I was going here and I was going there. And boom, 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 boom. And then the other guy, my boss, the one that hired me, comes up to me and he goes, is this a normal Tuesday? I'm like, oh yeah, this is normal. And I'm like, just wait, it gets busier. And he was like, huh? Because we were already busy.